Ava Collins sprinted through the pouring rain, her crooked umbrella flapping helplessly in the wind like a broken wing. She was late, catastrophically late, and this wasn't just any interview. This was her one shot. After months of freelance gigs, maxed out favors, and dinners that came out of a microwave, this was her chance to land something real. She didn't have time to wait at the crosswalk. The pedestrian light turned red, but she charged across, only 2 blocks away from the towering glass fortress of Blake & Co., a name that echoed power in every business magazine. Then came the sound, tires skidding, a splash. A tidal wave of brown city sludge burst from a pothole like an explosion and slammed into her. Ava gasped, her umbrella flipping inside out as cold, gritty water drenched her from head to toe. Her beige pants were now streaked with muck. Her once crisp white blouse was practically tie-dyed in gray. She stood frozen for a beat, her heart pounding. Somewhere behind her, a sleek black car purred to a stop. The window rolled down just slightly, revealing a man in a tailored charcoal suit and sharp cheekbones. He looked at her. No apology, no concern, just one raised eyebrow. Then the window slid back up, and the car pulled away into traffic, as if nothing had happened. Seriously, Ava threw her arms up at the sky, rain dripping from her sleeves. You saw me, you penguin in Prada, and you just drove off like some cologne commercial with commitment issues. She could go home, cry, disappear, but Ava Collins didn't come this far to run away. Clutching her ruined bag, and what was left of her umbrella, she marched up the steps of Blake & Company, like a warrior returning from battle, mud-soaked, determined, and still standing. Inside the lobby, perfection oozed from every corner. Polished marble floors, gold-trimmed elevators, dozens of impeccably dressed women sat waiting, heels sharp, resumes glossier than magazine covers, makeup done like a Vogue tutorial. Ava looked like she had crash-landed through a car wash. The receptionist blinked at her in disbelief. "And name?" "Ava Collins," she said, with as much grace as her soggy clothes allowed. "You can wait over there," the woman replied, clearly struggling to hide the pity in her voice. Ava took a seat at the very end of the row, careful not to get mud on the upholstery. A woman in a pastel pantsuit scooted one seat away, like elegance was contagious, and she didn't want to catch dirt flu. Then the elevator doors opened, and out walked Ethan Blake, CEO, founder's son, the man who probably practiced his walk for luxury watch ads. He didn't just enter the room, he owned it, tall poised, wrapped in an expensive kind of indifference. His eyes scanned the candidates like they were art pieces in a gallery. Then they landed on her. Ava didn't breathe. It was him, the car, the puddle, the suit, the zero remorse. She muttered under her breath, "Penguin confirmed." Ethan's gaze lingered on her for a second. No blink, no smile, and then he kept walking, like she was a piece of modern lobby art. Interesting, but not important. Of course he wasn't going to say sorry. Probably thinks mud is a skincare routine, she whispered bitterly. But as she watched him disappear behind the glass doors of the executive floor, something unexpected stirred inside her. Not anger, not shame, but defiance. She wasn't here to impress him. She was here to be seen. "Ava Collins," the receptionist finally called, eyeing her like she was about to track mud onto the company's reputation. Ava stood up, adjusted the bent umbrella in her bag, like it was part of her armor, and walked toward the glass interview room, with her chin high, even though her socks were squishing with each step. Inside, Ethan Blake sat behind a sleek black desk, typing something on a laptop that probably cost more than Ava's entire year's rent. The room smelled like leather and power. He didn't look up until she was standing right in front of him. When he did, a twitch played at the corner of his mouth. Amusement, disgust, hard to tell. "Mr. Blake," Ava said, doing her best to sound like a polished candidate instead of someone who looked like she just escaped a natural disaster. Sorry for the dramatic entrance. There was a bit of a city surprise. Ethan leaned back, folding his arms. Yes, that happens, especially to people who don't check the weather or avoid obvious puddles. Ava raised an eyebrow. And to drivers who treat stop signs like optional decorations. He paused, like he hadn't expected her to push back. His lips twitched again. Was that almost a smile? I admire honesty, he said, and boldness. Or is this just a strategy to distract me from the mud? Nope. This is natural. The mud just accents it. Now he definitely smirked, but only for a moment. His eyes were sharp, watching her with a curiosity she couldn't quite place. It was as if he was trying to figure her out, but also trying not to care. All right, Miss Collins, why do you think you're qualified to be my personal assistant? Because I'm resilient. I think on my feet, and I don't give up ever, which I clearly demonstrated today. Humble too, he said dryly. I'm working on that, along with drying off. He looked down at her resume, which was now slightly damp, and had a muddy fingerprint on the corner. Your resume is the mean. I was trying to match the overall look. Consistency matters, and that was it. He laughed, not a polite chuckle, but a short real laugh, the kind that said she had caught him off guard, just a little. Well, Miss Collins, he said, setting the resume aside, this interview is definitely different. Good. I like to leave an impression. He stared at her for a beat too long, and Ava felt her cheeks flush, but she didn't break eye contact. Not once did he mention the puddle, not once did he say sorry, but she knew. He remembered. He knew who she was. He just didn't want to admit it. You may go, he said finally, his tone returning to neutral. We'll be in touch. Ava nodded, turned and walked out, mud and all. Right before the door closed, she glanced over her shoulder and added, next time you plan to splash someone, try a weekday. I'm already booked for disasters this week. She left with her shoulders squared and her heart racing. Behind the desk, Ethan Blake sat perfectly still and couldn't stop the smile tugging at his lips. Ava left the interview room feeling like she had just walked off the edge of a cliff and somehow landed on her feet. She wasn't sure what just happened. She had been sarcastic, soaked, brutally honest, and probably way too bold for a CEO's assistant position. But underneath the nerves, she felt something unfamiliar bloom inside her. Pride. At the reception desk, the women were still seated. Glossy heels, glossy hair, glossy lives. They turned when she passed, some hiding smirks, others raising brows in amusement. She barely lasted 10 minutes. One of them whispered, smirking. Ava didn't flinch. I guess muddy people don't pair well with designer carpet, she replied sweetly, not missing a beat. The woman blinked and looked away. Ava sat down again and tried to dab her blouse with a tissue, though it was pointless. Everything about her screamed wrong. Wrong outfit, wrong hair, wrong first impression. But something felt right. Upstairs, Ethan Blake spun a silver pen slowly between his fingers. His desk was covered in glossy, laminated resumes, every one of them precise, polished, pristine, except for one, damp, wrinkled, with a bent corner and a faint coffee stain. Ava Collins. He picked it up and stared at it for a moment. She was different, he murmured to himself. Right then Claire, the head of HR, walked in with her ever-present clipboard and blazer sharp enough to cut glass. Ready for me to narrow them down? She asked, businesslike. Ethan shook his head without looking up. Not yet. I want to go through a few myself. Claire raised an eyebrow. All 100. By yourself? Just the ones that stood out. She paused, including the one who looked like she wrestled an alligator on the way here. He smirked faintly. Especially that one. Claire stared at him for a moment, but realized she wasn't going to get more than that. She nodded and left. Hours later, the final candidates began exiting the building one by one. Some walked tall, Some smiled politely, all still pristine, but none of them carried what Ava did. She walked out with a crooked umbrella in one hand, and the kind of quiet defiance that came from refusing to be invisible. She didn't know what the outcome would be, but for the first time in a long time, she didn't feel small. The next morning, her phone buzzed. She rubbed her eyes, still half asleep, and answered in a raspy voice. "Hello, Miss Collins, this is Blake and Company. We're calling to inform you. You've been selected for the position of Mr. Blake's personal assistant. Congratulations." Silence. "Miss Collins, I got the job." "Yes, ma'am. We'll need you here tomorrow at 8 a.m. Please bring all necessary documents." "I got the job," she repeated, now fully awake and shouting. "I got the job. Yes, that's correct. Are you all right?" "No, I mean yes. I mean, I'm great. Thank you." She hung up and just stared at the phone, speechless. This had to be a mistake, or a prank, or a simulation. But it wasn't. Somewhere in a high-rise office, Ethan Blake was still reviewing resumes, but the decision was already made. He hadn't laughed once during 100 interviews, until her, and that to him, meant everything. Ava Collins stood outside Blake and Company the next morning, her heart pounding like a drumline. It was 7:28 a.m. She was early. She was determined. She was wearing her cousin's borrowed heels, and a blouse with a barely visible safety pin holding the side seam together. But hey, progress. She walked through the glass doors with a brave smile, greeting the front desk guard with an energy that said, "I belong here." He gave her a hesitant nod, probably wondering how someone with such a glowing smile still had band-aids on her heels. As she rode the elevator up to the executive floor, Ava gave herself a pep talk in the mirrored walls. No slipping, no tripping, no soaking anyone with coffee. Just breathe, be cool, be professional. The doors opened to a floor that smelled like espresso and ambition. Ava stepped out, only to be greeted by a tall, stern woman who looked like she could smell fear. "Melissa," the woman said, "I'm Mr. Blake's executive coordinator. You'll be working under his direct supervision. This will be your temporary desk. Don't touch anything, not even the coffee." Ava blinked. "What if the coffee touches me?" Melissa didn't laugh. She didn't even twitch. "Understood," Ava said quickly. She glanced around. Everyone looked like they'd walked out of a corporate fashion catalog. Tailored jackets, sleek buns, quiet confidence. Meanwhile, she felt like the accidental extra in a serious drama. Then the door to the corner office opened. Ethan Blake stepped out with his usual composed grace, each step measured like he was walking to a soundtrack only he could hear. He stopped in front of her. "Miss Collins, Mr. Blake, I'm early." "Noted." He eyed her outfit. "And clean. That's a good start." She smiled faintly. "For now." Without a word, he nodded and walked into his office. Just before the door closed, he added, "Keep up the pace." She blinked, surprised. It wasn't exactly warm, but it wasn't cold either. It was something. 11 minutes. That's how long it took for Ava's vow to not mess anything up to collapse. She was balancing a tray of coffee for the morning meeting when her heel, borrowed and already plotting against her, snagged the hem of her slacks. Her foot slid, the tray tilted, and 3 cups of piping hot coffee launched into the air like caffeine missiles. One hit the wall, one landed with a splash on the carpet, and the third just missed a potted plant and shattered with a crash loud enough to stop time. The hallway fell silent. Inside the glass meeting room, Ethan turned slowly, like a movie villain about to deliver a line of icy disapproval. He met Ava's frozen, horrified eyes through the glass. She gave a sheepish thumbs up. "Good morning," she said, as if she hadn't just declared war on the office carpet. He didn't say a word. He simply closed the door with surgical calm and returned to the meeting. "Off to a great start, Collins," Melissa murmured, striding past like a judging ghost in heels. 2 hours later, Ava sat at her desk with an ice pack on her elbow.
courtesy of the printer she'd also accidentally bumped into and a stack of unclear instructions. She stared at a file labeled, "Organize these according to Mr. Blake's system." "What system?" she muttered aloud. "His system," came a voice beside her. She turned to see a young man with a soft smile and messy curls. "Diego," he said, holding a lanyard. "It's support and unofficial translator of Mr. Blake's madness." "Oh, thank God. I thought I was losing it." "Everyone does. His system is like a puzzle with no edges. We hand in reports, he changes everything, then says we were wrong. So, it's a riddle." "Exactly. A riddle with a tie and a superiority complex." Ava laughed for the first time that day. "Thanks, Diego. I needed that." "Watch out for the printer," he added. "It holds grudges." By mid-afternoon, chaos found her again. A man in a sharp suit appeared at the front, holding a sleek briefcase. "Brian Kim, sales director at Altus Corp. I have a rush proposal for Mr. Blake." Ava blinked. "Didn't I see you this morning with a bag of yakisoba?" Brian looked confused. "Excuse me." "Oh, right, sorry. Thought you were the delivery guy." "You're not, obviously." Brian stared. "Are you joking?" "Yes, totally. That was a test. You passed." "Yay." Ethan appeared, just in time to witness the awkward exchange. "Is there a problem?" he asked. "Nope, no problem. Just a spontaneous HR improvisation," Ava said, already wishing the floor would open up. Brian chuckled. "Love the humor. We need more of that around here." Ava nodded. "Here to serve," and stumbled. Later that day, just when she thought the worst was over, panic swept through the office. Melissa came running, voice tight. "The presentation for tomorrow's shareholder event. Wrong version was sent to the printers. No one caught it. Can we fix it?" Ethan asked, glancing at Ava. Melissa shook her head. "The layout's too confusing. No one can follow it. Not even the print shop." Ava stood up. "I can try." Everyone turned. "You know about layouts?" Ethan asked. "No, but I know confusion. And I speak fluent last-minute panic." She grabbed the USB, sat down and got to work. She restructured the slides with clean visuals, updated titles, corrected alignment, and even added a color-coded summary. "This is great," Melissa said, stunned. "Better than great." Ethan looked at the screen, then at her. "This will save us from a disaster tomorrow," he said. Ava smiled. "Finally. See, not all mud is useless." He smirked. "We're still testing that theory." The next morning at Blake & Company began like most corporate days. Coffee, tension, and too many emails before 9 a.m. But for Ava Collins, this day came with a new kind of pressure. Ethan Blake had asked her to accompany him to the board meeting, not just to hand over a report, but to walk in beside him. She clutched the blue folder with carefully compiled performance stats, triple-checked every number, every chart, every color. "Just don't drop anything. Don't trip. Don't make eye contact with a plant. Breathe." They stepped into the executive elevator, a silent glass capsule that zoomed straight to the top floor. At first, neither of them said a word. The air between them was charged but quiet. Halfway up, the elevator jerked, then stopped. Ava blinked. The floor display flickered. The light dimmed. "Wait, is this part of the executive experience?" she asked, half joking. Dramatic pause between destination. Ethan pressed the button. Then again, nothing. He exhaled slowly. It stuck. Ava's breath caught. Like, really stuck. Really stuck. Her heart started pounding faster. The walls felt closer. "Okay, cool. Just a mild panic," she muttered, taking a step back. "No big deal. It's not like I'm mildly claustrophobic or anything, except I am." Ethan looked at her. "Do you need to sit?" "No." "Well, maybe. Do you have any secret doors here? Escape hatches, chocolate bars?" He leaned against the glass wall, arms crossed. "Do you have a technique for dealing with this?" "Usually I sing." "Please don't." She let out a shaky laugh. "Okay, talking works too. As long as we keep talking, I won't start imagining that the walls are closing in." "Then talk," he said simply. What's Ava Collins' sorry? She blinked. Seriously, I'm not going anywhere. Might as well learn who my assistant is beyond the chaos and coffee stain. Ava took a breath. Fine, I was born in Fairhill. My mom was a seamstress. My dad vanished before I could pronounce daddy. We had nothing but thread, stubbornness, and love. I grew up learning how to fix things. Clothes, toasters, situation. Ethan listened. No sarcasm, no judgment. I've been a babysitter, a cashier, a waitress, a bracelet seller at campus fairs. I've had more odd jobs than birthdays. Never enough money, but always enough motivation. I've fallen a lot, and I've stood up every single time. He nodded, his expression unreadable. The interview, a disaster, she said, smiling, but memorable. You made it through public humiliation, and still walked into the office like you owned it, because if I didn't walk in, I'd never forgive myself. I needed to prove I wasn't defined by a puddle or a first impression. Ethan leaned forward slightly. You're a puzzle, and you're an equation with no variable. She shot back with a grin. Were you born a CEO? My father built the company. I was trained to take over. London, then New York, then 5 departments before this office. Do you like it? He paused. I like order. I like control. So, I must be your worst nightmare. I'm a walking question mark. She laughed, for real this time, and he smiled. One of those rare, genuine ones that made him look less like a boardroom legend, and more like someone human. The elevator stayed still. She slid down the wall, and sat on the floor, crossing her legs. Did you know I once got locked in a school bus overnight, because I fell asleep in the back? Ethan raised a brow. That's oddly impressive. The alarm went off. I jumped out a window. The siren followed me halfway home. True story. He slowly lowered himself to sit across from her. And yet, you still get in elevators with strangers. I enjoy danger. I might also be stupid. Ethan chuckled, then went quiet for a moment. His gaze softened. You're unlike anyone I've ever worked with. Is that a compliment or a warning? Still deciding. Ava looked at him, really looked, and saw the man beneath the perfect posture and icy stares. There was something deeper there, something bruised but still fighting. Then softly, she asked, why did you hire me? He hesitated. Because you didn't try to impress me. You didn't hide behind a perfect smile or a spotless resume. You came in, covered in mud, and still stood your ground. She swallowed the lump in her throat. I thought it was because I'm budget friendly. That too. The radio crackled. A voice came through. Mr. Blake, Miss Collins' maintenance is on the way. 5 more minutes. Thank you, Ethan replied. Ava stayed on the floor a moment longer, breathing steadier now. If I tell my mom about this, she's going to think I made it up for a TV drama. Tell her it's a documentary. She laughed, then held out her hand. He took it, pulled her up, and for a brief second, they stood inches apart. No words, no jokes, just something hanging in the air that neither of them dared name. Something was changing. The elevator dinged. The door slid open. Ethan let go of her hand, straightened his jacket, and walked out like nothing happened. Ava followed, heart still racing. But that silence between them, it wasn't empty. It was full of everything they hadn't said yet. Friday afternoon dragged like a slow song on repeat. The office buzzed with the usual hum of keyboard, low conversation, and the occasional clink of coffee cups. Ava Collins was hunched over her desk, trying to make sense of a confusing schedule. When she felt someone standing beside her, she turned. Ethan Blake, Miss Collins, he said, cool and direct. Ava jolted, nearly knocking her pen off the desk. Oh yes, Mr. Blake, I have a shareholder dinner tomorrow night. I need someone to manage logistics, handle the materials, keep things organized behind the scenes. Her heart skipped. Dinner? You're inviting me to dinner? She asked carefully. He nodded. Yes, be ready at 7 p.m. Dress professionally. Professionally. Not elegantly. Not formally. Definitely not romantically. Still, Ava heard dinner. Him, her. Saturday night. Of course, she said, too quickly. Absolutely. I'll be ready. Ethan gave her the smallest nod and walked away. No further explanation. Ava stared at his retreating figure, like he'd just handed her a riddle with no instruction. By Saturday afternoon, Ava was deep in a rented dress shop with two of her friends, surrounded by a battlefield of hangers and rejected outfits. The blue one's too corporate. You look like his accountant, Clara said. The red one's too. Hello scandal, added Anna. You don't want to look like you're hosting a scandal, just possibly starring in one. What about this? Ava held up a deep burgundy dress with a side slit and open back. They both gasped. Yes, elegant, bold, unexpected. That's the one. Ava looked at herself in the mirror. She barely recognized the woman staring back. Confident, magnetic, just dangerous enough to keep secrets. Let's hope he notices, she whispered to herself. At 6:50 p.m., Ava stood outside the Grand Tower Hotel, heels clicking against the marble floor. Her hair was swept into a messy but strategic bun. Lips painted with the last drop of a lipstick she wasn't sure hadn't expired. She took a deep breath, then walked into the reception room. Within seconds, she realized two things. Everyone inside wore black suits, navy ties, quiet luxury. Not a single leg slit in sight. And Ethan, he was already speaking to a group of investors. When his eyes landed on her, he paused, just a half second longer than necessary. Miss Collins, he said, walking over. You look different. Good different, or what, did you just walk into different? I haven't decided yet. She smiled, trying to hide the nerves fluttering in her chest. I thought a bit of color might help. Adds life to the charts. You look like you're here for a Cannes film premiere, he said, dry. Oops, I thought it was a dinner with charm. My bad. Before she could explain herself further, a waiter passed with a tray of champagne. Please, Ava said, taking a glass. Hydrating is important, especially when you're overdressed and underinformed. Despite the awkward start, Ava slid into the room like she belonged. She greeted people, offered quick-witted remarks, handled tech hiccups, and kept the materials moving like a pro. At one point, she found herself explaining to two Spanish investors why mixing graphs in a financial report is like putting pineapple on pizza. Some people pretend to like it, but deep down, everyone knows something's wrong. They laughed, genuinely. From across the room, Ethan watched. She had no idea how many heads she was turning, or how many eyes lingered just a moment too long. But he did, and for reasons he didn't want to name. It bothered him. Your new assistant is quite vibrant, said Mr. Valencia, one of the investors.
She's one of a kind, Ethan replied, sipping from his glass. She's making people laugh. That's rare here. Ethan didn't respond. He couldn't stop looking at her. At the way her dress danced with every step. At the way her eyes lit up when she was confident and unfiltered. This is dangerous, he thought. Later, as the event wound down, Ava approached him while packing up the presentation materials. Well, she said, I managed not to spill any wine. That's a win. You also managed to break 3 hearts and a few power dynamics. She laughed. Accidental, I promise. Then she hesitated. Okay, I have to admit something. Yes, I thought this dinner was different, like not just business. Ethan didn't answer at first. Then, what if it was? She froze. What? What if it was more than business? What would you have said? Ava's mouth opened, but no words came, so she smiled instead. Next time, invite me in a way that doesn't sound like a task list. He chuckled softly. Duly noted. You should laugh more, she added. It makes you look less terrifying, and you should talk less. I'll work on that. They stood there for a moment, somewhere between a beginning and a risk. Then, Ethan whispered, Thank you for tonight, Miss Collins. You're welcome, boss. She turned to walk away. He didn't stop her, but the way his eyes followed her said everything. By Monday morning, the air inside Blake & Company had changed. Colder, sharper, watching. Ava Collins walked into the break room like she had every day since she got hired, coffee in hand, messy bun, slightly defying gravity, and the kind of energy that didn't quite fit the glass and steel environment. But this time, as she walked in, the two women from accounting, who were laughing moments ago, stopped mid-sentence. They turned, smiled that tight corporate smile, and walked out. Ava stood there for a second, unsure whether to sip her coffee or pour it over her nerves. You just got promoted from invisible to inconvenient. At her desk, she opened her inbox. The first email hit her like a slap in heels. From Melissa Rocha, subject, presentation review. Miss Collins, please revise the report you sent yesterday. Mr. Blake said it was too informal. She blinked. Too informal. I added a subtitle and used a font that doesn't require a microscope. Just then Diego passed by and noticed her expression. What's up? Who stepped on your joy this time? Ava turned the screen toward him. He winced. Ah, the classic, you're getting too visible treatment. Welcome to stage 2 of the corporate Olympics. Stage 2, yeah. Stage 1 is underestimating you. Stage 2 is sabotaging you. Stage 3 is pretending it's your fault. Ava let out a sigh and leaned back. Let the games begin. Meanwhile, in the corner office, Ethan Blake was reading a financial projection when Melissa walked in, tablet in hand, voice sweet as honey, laced with thorns. About Miss Collins, she began. Ethan didn't look up. What about her? She's been attracting attention. He kept reading. She handled the shareholder dinner. That's a good thing, yes, but some are starting to talk. Her outfit, her tone, the way she interacts with you. Now Ethan did look up, slowly, his gaze sharp. Are you implying that a competent, bold assistant is problematic? Melissa's lips curved just slightly. I'm saying it might be too soon for so much freedom. She's not exactly polished. I'm not hiring polish, I'm hiring results. Melissa tried not to show the way her jaw clenched. Of course, just looking out for your image. Let me worry about that. Dismissed but smiling, Melissa walked out, already typing a message on her phone. She wasn't done, not even close. That same afternoon, Ava was reviewing files when a tall man, with an overconfident smile and a tan that looked more like a filter, approached her. Douglas Forrest, Partnerships Division. Miss Collins, he said, crooking his finger like she was a waitress at a golf club. Need a quick favor? Sure, what do you need? I've got a meeting with some South Korean investors. Urgent pitch. Can you prep a few slides and get the room ready? Confidential. Of course, discretion is key. Something about the way he said it made her hesitate. Still, she nodded. Send me the files. She spent hours on them. Translated slides, adjusted layout, prepped the conference room down to the bottled water and working projector. That's when Diego walked in. What are you doing with the Horizon project deck? Ava blinked. What do you mean? That's confidential. Only directors are allowed access. Ava felt the blood drain from her face. Douglas asked me to, he said. Diego didn't even need to say it. It clicked. She'd been played. That evening, Ethan called her into his office. The air inside felt 10 degrees colder. Close the door, he said without looking up. She did. He turned slowly to face her. Explain why you accessed board-level materials without clearance. I didn't mean to. Douglas told me it was for his meeting. He said it was confidential. I thought, you thought, Ethan interrupted. But you didn't check. You didn't ask me. She straightened her back. I was trying to prove I could do more. He stared at her for a long, hard moment. You could have compromised $1 million deal. You breached confidentiality. I didn't know. Exactly. Because you didn't think it through. Silence. Then Ava raised her chin. So now I'm the problem. No. You're impulsive. And you're in a place where people are looking for excuses to bring you down. Then tell me who set me up. Almost everyone in this building, he said quietly, except me. That hit harder than she expected. Is that a compliment? It's a warning. Ava folded her arms. If you regret hiring me, Say so. I'll leave. You can replace me with someone quieter, easier, pre-approved. No one asked you to be different, and yet here I am. They stared at each other. Frustration, fire, respect. So what do I do now? She asked. Softer. Prove you belong here. But stop making it easy for them. Be strategic, not reckless. Ava picked up the folder on his desk. If I get fired, I'm at least singing my own exit song. As long as it's not recorded, he muttered. That was my plan B. And then for the briefest second, he smiled. She saw it. So did he. Good night, Mr. Blake. Good night, Miss Collins. She closed the door behind her with steady hands but a racing heart. Across the street, inside a dimly lit restaurant, Melissa raised a wine glass with Douglas Forrest beside her. She won't last long, he said. I hope not, she replied. But if she does, we'll just make the fall harder. They clinked glasses like it was a contract, and war had just begun. By Friday morning, the buzz around Blake and Company was electric. Tonight was the Foster and Trends showcase, the most glamorous, most scrutinized, most press-covered event of the year. Designers, influencers, executives, and media would all be watching, which is why Ava Collins was stunned when Claire from events dropped a folder onto her desk like a bomb. You've been assigned to manage tonight's showcase. Ava blinked. Me. Backstage logistics, vendor coordination, staff flow, all of it. Why? Because Mr. Blake said you're good with chaos. Claire replied flatly, already walking away. Chaos was an understatement. By early afternoon, Ava was standing in a converted warehouse in the Liberty District, a massive venue dressed in wires, lights, and stress. Models were running in heels. Stylists were arguing over pallets. And somewhere, a hairdryer was having a nervous breakdown. Clipboard in hand, Ava dove in. Stage cues, walk orders, playlist timings, vendor confirmations. She handled it like a woman trying to defuse a bomb with one hand and a paperclip. Everything was going, not perfectly, but manageably, until it wasn't. Ava, someone shouted from the sound booth. The DJ says the playlist's a mess. Wrong version. What? I sent the final cut last night, and catering just arrived, but they were told they were scheduled 2 hours later. Ava's heart sank. She rushed to her email history, and found the forwarded confirmations. Every single attachment was outdated. At the bottom of the email chain, forwarded by Melissa Rocha. Ava clenched her jaw. Sabotage with a smile. Backstage, a tall figure peeked out from the dressing room curtain. Bella Marquez, legendary model, all sharp cheekbones and smoky voice, surveyed the chaos like a queen assessing a battlefield. Girl, this place is upside down, she said. Where's your team? You're looking at her, Ava replied, trying not to cry or throw something. And tonight, I'm also the designated scapegoat. Bella looked at her, really looked. You remind me of me, before the covers, before the contracts. Just heart, grit, and a bit too much eyeliner. Then she nodded. Let's fix this. With Bella leading the models like a glamorous general, and a stylist named Jean, yelling orders in a flamingo print scarf, Ava rebuilt the night from scratch. Jean ripped down the blue lighting that clashed with the main designer's collection. Darling, red and blue only work on flags. A runway needs elegance, not electoral confusion. Bella had the second group of models lined up like synchronized warriors. One wrong foot and we start over, ladies. Confidence doesn't limp. And Ava, covered in sweat, mascara smudged, breath tight, was everywhere at once. Swapping slides, redirecting vendors, calming stylists, rewriting cue cards with a Sharpie and pure adrenaline. In less than an hour, the chaos turned into controlled rhythm, all under the watchful eye of Ethan Blake, who stood at the far end of the venue, arms crossed, silent, but watching. Next to him, Melissa leaned in, smiling faintly. Looks like there were some minor issues, she murmured. Ethan didn't look at her. Looks like someone tried to make them her fault. Melissa's fingers tensed around her phone. At exactly 8 p.m., the lights dimmed, the music started.
The show began. Models glided down the runway, seamless, flawless. Guests applauded. Cameras flashed. Backstage, Ava was crouched behind a curtain, swapping cue cards, whispering cues, chugging water between segments. Then she heard her name, and a special thanks to Miss Ava Collins, who coordinated tonight's showcase. Ava looked up, stunned. The room clapped. Hard. Wait, me. Before she could resist, Bella pushed her forward. Go get your moment, girl. Ava stumbled onto the runway, heels in hand, cheeks flushed, eyes wide. The spotlight hit her like a surprise. Applause rolled through the room. In the far corner, Ethan Blake clapped slowly, genuinely. Melissa didn't clap. Later, backstage, Ava sat on the floor with her shoes off, and a bottle of water in her lap. I survived, she whispered. No, Bella corrected. You conquered. Jean arrived with a sparkly gift bag from the team, a pair of sneakers. Because your souls deserve peace after what you just pulled off. Ava laughed, loud and real. For the first time, she didn't feel like a visitor in this world. She felt like she belonged. Outside the venue, Ethan leaned against his car, waiting. Ava stepped out, barefoot in her new sneakers. I thought you left, she said, surprised. I stayed, he replied, in case you needed a ride. You don't strike me as the kind of boss who worries about his assistant's comfort, and you don't strike me as the kind who respects limits. Touche. They stood there for a moment. You knew they were trying to bring me down tonight, didn't you? She asked. I suspected. So this was a test? No, he said. It was a chance, a stage. You took it. And you didn't just survive it. He opened the car door for her. You owned it. She got in, still catching her breath. I just hope this ride doesn't end in another mud puddle. If it does, Ethan said, finally smiling, I promise I'll get out and apologize this time. She laughed. That's growth, Mr. Blake. Baby steps, Miss Collins. And as the city lights blurred past the window, Ava leaned back, sneakers tapping against the floor mat, heart full. For the first time, she wasn't just fighting to be seen. She was seen, and that changed everything. The week after the fashion showcase was a blur. Reports, meetings, emails that multiplied like rabbits, and requests from Ethan Blake that came faster than Ava could breathe. She didn't complain, not once. She just showed up earlier, stayed later, and smiled through it all, even when her body whispered slow down, and her heart begged for sleep. By Wednesday, at 2:37 p.m., Ava sat at her desk, trying to finish an email she'd rewritten 3 times. The words swam, the screen pulsed, she blinked, hard, then the world tilted. The last thing she heard was Diego shouting her name, before everything went dark. Somebody get water, sugar, a doctor, or a helicopter if you've got one, Diego shouted, kneeling beside her. Ava was unconscious, pale, and sweating. When the receptionist dialed security, someone else sprinted from the boardroom, leaving behind charts, investors, and mid-sentence negotiations. Ethan Blake. He didn't speak, didn't ask questions. He just moved, calm, fast, focused, until he reached her. By the time Ava opened her eyes, she was in an armchair, wrapped in a blanket, with Diego offering her water and a cookie someone had found in the HR cabinet. What happened? She croaked. You fainted, Diego said, mid-sentence. You went full shutdown. I'm fine, she mumbled, trying to sit up. No, another voice said, low, firm, unmistakable. Ethan, you're not fine, he said, stepping closer. You're done for today. But, that's enough, Collins. Let's go. She wanted to argue, but then he gently took her arm, and for some reason, maybe the weight in his voice, maybe the warmth of his hand, she let him. The ride was quiet. Ava rested her head against the window, watching the city blur past in soft motion. You didn't have to bring me, she mumbled. I did. Why? Because no one else noticed you were drowning. I wasn't. You were. He cut in gently. Too much pressure. Too much proving. Too much trying to be everything for everyone. She looked at him, eyes heavy. Since when do you care? He didn't answer right away. Then since the day you showed up covered in mud, and still smiled like the city hadn't broken you. His apartment was nothing like she imagined. Modern, yes. Minimal, yes. But cold, like a showroom. No one lived in. Marble floors, floor-to-ceiling windows, and not a single pillow out of place. "This is your home?" she asked, stepping into the guest room. He opened for her. "No one uses this room," he replied. "Tonight, it's yours. I don't have clothes, or a toothbrush, not even my cow print pajamas. There are t-shirts in the closet." She raised an eyebrow. "CEO pajamas." He cracked a smile. "Just don't turn them into rags. I make no promises." She shut the door behind her, and sank into the bed. Within minutes, she was asleep, deep, dreamless, and safe. When she woke up, it was dark. She stepped out of the guest room, wearing a navy t-shirt that reached her knees, and smelled faintly of clean laundry and cologne. She found him in the kitchen, cooking. "You cook," she said, leaning on the doorframe. "Just enough to survive on long trips." "Impressive omelette, Mr. Blake." "Very unexpected." They sat at the counter, 2 plates, 2 forks, no tension, just something quiet and unfamiliar between them. "This is actually good," Ava admitted. "Who taught you?" "A Michelin chef." "YouTube." She burst out laughing. "Now I believe you're human." He watched her laugh, really laugh, and something in him softened. "Why didn't you tell me you lost your mom young?" he asked, quieter now. Ava took a breath. "Because I didn't want it to be an excuse. She was my whole world. After she passed, I promised myself I'd do something worth it, that I'd become someone she'd be proud of." "You have." She looked up surprised. "Some days I believe that," she said. "Some days I fake it." "I know the feeling," he said, voice lower. "Have you lost someone?" "My brother," he said simply. "Car accident. I was 19. He was 16. The silence that followed was deep, but not heavy, respectful.
Real.
"That's when you became this?" she asked softly. "Efficient, cold, untouchable." "That's when I realized control is the only way to survive." "You don't have to survive all the time." He didn't answer. Then slowly, he reached across the counter and touched her hand. Just that, fingers to fingers, palm to palm, a soft, warm, honest touch that said, "I see you." Ava didn't pull away. She just looked down at their hands, joined like a secret. Neither of them had spoken aloud. "You should sleep more," he whispered, eyes still on her. "You too," she replied, "and smile more. It helps. Stop giving me orders." "Never." The touch lingered. Then he pulled back, cleared the plates, and washed them like nothing had happened. But something had, and they both knew it. It started with a buzz. "Ava," Diego whispered, holding his phone like it was radioactive. "You need to see this." Ava groaned, still sipping her lukewarm coffee. "If it's another cat in a suit, I'm not emotionally stable enough today." "It's not a meme. It's you." He hit play. The video was less than 30 seconds long. It showed a young woman, her running with a bent umbrella through the rain, just seconds before a wave of mud exploded from a puddle and drenched her head to toe. Her face was clear. Her reaction, shocked but defiant, was the highlight. The title, "Girl Gets Drenched Before Job Interview and Still Walks In Like a Queen." Ava stared. "Who filmed this?" "The flower shop's security cam." Someone clipped it, added dramatic music, and posted it. It's been shared over 300,000 times. By noon, it was everywhere. Motivational pages, feminist blogs, satire accounts, even a podcast that did a dramatic reading of her angry sidewalk monologue, "You Fancy Penguin," became a meme. Some called her brave, others made jokes, but everyone saw her, and Ava hated every second of it. "You're kind of famous," Diego said later, trying to lighten the mood. "I'm exposed," she replied, scrolling through her mentions. "People are asking if the dress I wore to the shareholder dinner was rented." It was. So were the heels. The lipstick was expired. "Breathe," Ava, I didn't ask for this. I just wanted to work, to be good enough, not a symbol. You were never just like everyone else, Diego said quietly. That's why they can't stop watching. She got up. She needed air. In the hallway near the break room, she stopped when she heard two familiar voices, Melissa
and someone from communications. So now she's going to be an influencer, one of them said. Maybe next she'll launch a line of mud-proof umbrellas. Soft laughter. Ava turned around and walked straight to the elevator, her face burning, her stomach tight. Upstairs, in the CEO's office, Claire marched in with an urgent tone. We need to talk about the Ava video. I saw it, Ethan said. The legal team wants to know if we're filing takedown notices or releasing a statement. I already tried getting some versions removed. It's too late. It's everywhere now. Claire looked at him. You're really worried? Someone filmed a private moment and turned it into entertainment. That's a violation. She doesn't seem too bothered. She is, Ethan replied. She just won't admit it. Claire hesitated, then said what no one else dared. You're crossing a line, Ethan. He didn't answer, because he already had. Long ago, outside the building, Ava sat on a bench, phone buzzing non-stop. Then it rang. Ethan, she sighed, answered. Where are you? He asked. Getting some air. Can I join you? It's a public bench. I can't exactly stop you. 5 minutes later, he was beside her. No suit jacket, no power stare, just a man who looked like he hadn't slept right in days. I asked them to take down what they could, he said. I know, Diego told me. I did it for you. Who said I wanted that? She replied, voice low. Ethan turned, surprised. I thought I was protecting you. You don't need to protect me, Ethan. I'm not your charity case. I'm not a project. I'm not some viral underdog. I never said you were. You didn't have to, she said, standing up. Do you know why this bothers me so much? Tell me. Because now everyone thinks I'm here. Because I got lucky. Because I got splashed. And you noticed. Not because I'm good. Not because I worked my heart out. Just because I made you laugh. That's not true. No, because it sure feels like the only thing people see is a wet girl in borrowed shoes. Not the work. Not the grit. Not the effort. He stared at her, eyes full of things he couldn't say. And worst of all, she whispered, they see the way you look at me, when you think no one's watching. Silence. Real, painful, honest. I don't know what to do, he admitted finally. Then don't do anything, she said. Let me handle this. Let me be more than a moment. She turned to leave. Ava, I need space. I need to remember who I am, when I'm not a meme. And then, so softly he didn't even realize he'd said it aloud. Was it because of me? She stopped, surprised. He looked just as surprised at his own words. I came for me, she said. But maybe I stayed because of you. And then she walked away, into the elevator, into silence, into the unknown. The next day, Ava Collins didn't come to work. Not at 8 o'clock, not at all. Diego messaged her. You okay? She replied with a simple, I just need some time. In the office, Melissa floated through the halls with her usual sugary smile, lighter, sharper, like a storm cloud had finally passed. Whispers returned to corners. People who once laughed with Ava now barely said her name. But upstairs, in the corner office, Ethan Blake sat behind his desk, not reading, not moving. He was staring at a chair, her chair, the one next to the door, the one that still had her notepad, slightly bent at the corner. He'd spent the entire day in meetings, nodding through presentations, reading reports without absorbing a word. because every chart, every number, every next slide reminded him that the office sounded different without her voice in the room, that it felt different. That night, he walked into his penthouse and sat in the dark. The silence wasn't peaceful, it was empty. He picked up his phone, opened his photo gallery. Only one picture of her, a blurry, accidental snapshot from the fashion show, where she was mid-laugh with a glass of water in hand and borrowed sneakers on her feet. She looked alive, unfiltered, real. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "I'm lost, Collins." 4 days passed. Then on the 5th day, a letter arrived, handwritten, no envelope, just folded paper. He opened it with shaking fingers. "Ethan, I didn't leave because I gave up. I left because I realized I was starting to disappear inside all this. I was loud, messy, impulsive, and somehow I started editing that version of me, just to fit into a space that was never built for someone like me. I'm grateful for the chance, for the way you saw me when others didn't, for every time you didn't laugh when you could have. But I need to remember who I am when no one's watching. I'm clumsy, curious, stubborn. I ask too many questions and hate small talk. But I'm also capable, loyal, and full of fire. And you're still a mystery, one I'd love to figure out, but not at the cost of losing myself. Thank you for everything. See you around. Ava." Ethan read the letter once, then twice, then a third time. He stood up, grabbed his keys, and walked out of the building. No message, no assistant, no plan, because sometimes even CEOs need to stop calculating risk. Sometimes they just have to go. It took Ethan 2 full days to find her. Ava Collins hadn't just stepped away from the company. She'd stepped off the grid. No Instagram posts, no LinkedIn updates, no texts to Diego, no coffee shop sightings. But Ethan was a man who built empires from research and instinct. He remembered one thing she told him, offhand, in the elevator weeks ago. "Someday, I'll go to Paris, not for fashion or selfies, just for quiet and croissants." So he took a chance and landed in Paris. 3 days later, he spotted her in a small bookstore tucked between 2 alleys in the Latin Quarter. She was sitting by a rain-dappled window, a book in one hand, coffee in the other, her hair tied back loosely, sleeves rolled up, face calm. She looked like someone who had let go of noise. He stood there in the doorway for a second, watching, uncertain. Then she looked up. Their eyes locked. A pause. Her eyes widened. She stood, book falling to the floor. "You're here," she whispered. "I am." "You came all the way to Paris. For what?" "To offer me a better job title." He shook his head slowly. "No title, no job, just truth." She folded her arms. "What truth?" "That I didn't just lose my assistant when you left. I lost the only person who ever saw me. Without the empire, without the echo chamber, without the nameplate on my desk." She said nothing. He stepped closer. "I don't know how to be good at this. Not the feelings, not the chase, but I know when I miss someone. And I know I miss you, in ways that don't make sense." Ava blinked rapidly. "You can't just fly across an ocean to say something like that, and expect it to be simple." "I don't expect simple. I expect honest. I expect messy. I expect you." Her walls cracked, just a little. He reached into his coat pocket, pulled out something small, her old broken umbrella, taped and bent, but intact. "You kept this," she said, stunned. "You called it your armor. I figured I'd hold on to it until you were ready to come back for it." Tears welled in her eyes, but she smiled, still dramatic. "I see. Only when the cause is worth it." She stepped forward, took the umbrella gently, and then touched his hand. No words, no audience, just breath and closeness. Then softly, okay, I'm not coming back to be your assistant. I didn't ask. I'm not moving into your penthouse.
I didn't assume. But, I'll walk with you, one step at a time. No suits, no scripts, just this. He nodded. I'll take it. And right there, surrounded by the soft hum of Paris, falling rain, and the warmth of something real, they kissed. Not like a fairy tale, not like a business deal, but like two people who finally stopped pretending they weren't exactly what the other needed. The Paris magic didn't end with the kiss. For 2 days, Ava and Ethan walked cobblestone streets with no titles between them. They ate butter-dripping croissants, laughed in parks, held hands like people who weren't afraid to be seen. But love doesn't stop the world from spinning. And when they returned to New York, it was waiting, a storm. The moment they walked into the office together, eyes snapped, phones slid out quietly, conversations paused mid-sentence. Ava didn't need to guess. She knew the look. She'd seen it in high school, in coffee shops, in job interviews. The look that said, "You don't belong here." Not like that. In the elevator, silence stretched. By the time they reached the executive floor, Claire was already waiting with a folder. "Ethan, we need to talk." Ava froze. "Should I?" "No," Ethan said. "Stay." Claire's eyes narrowed. "The board received anonymous complaints while you were away." "About what?" "About your relationship with an employee, about company resources, about bias, and potential legal conflicts." Ava's face flushed. "Legal?" Ethan stepped in. "She no longer works here. She resigned. This has nothing to do with the company. But the footage from Paris, the photos, the rumors, it's public now." Claire said. "The media is circling. HR is tense. The board wants a clean investigation." He clenched his jaw. "Fine." Ava pulled his sleeve gently. "Ethan, don't. I won't let them drag you into this." She shook her head. "You shouldn't have to protect me like this." "I'm not protecting you. I'm doing what's right." Later that afternoon, a company-wide memo went out, effective immediately. Mr. Ethan Blake will temporarily step down as CEO of Blake & Company, pending an independent ethics review. Shockwaves rippled through the office. Melissa practically floated from cubicle to cubicle, faking concern. Diego stormed into the break room. "This is insane. He built this company. You think they'd blink twice if it was anyone else?" Ava sat in silence, reading the memo again. The weight of it crushed her. He stepped down for her, for them, and now she had to face the truth. That evening, she found Ethan alone on the rooftop of his building. Jacket off, tie loose, hands in his pockets. "I told you not to do this," she said quietly. He didn't turn around. "I've spent my whole life trying to do things by the book. Be calculated, be in control. And now, I'm finally choosing something that's not in the manual." Ava walked to him. "You gave up everything." "No, I gave up a position. Not what matters. I didn't ask you to fall for me." He looked at her then. "I didn't ask to fall either. But here we are." Tears pricked her eyes. "So what now?" He exhaled. "Now, you stay out of it. Let me handle the fallout. I won't let you take this hit alone. You already have," he whispered. The next morning, Ava walked into Blake & Company. One last time, she went straight to the 29th floor, straight into the boardroom, and handed in a statement. A clean resignation, voluntary. She blamed no one. She named no names. She simply said, "It's time I walk forward on my own terms." And then she walked out, head high, heels steady, heart heavier than ever before. 2 weeks. That's how long it had been since Ava Collins walked out of Blake & Company, for the last time. No texts, no calls, no drama, just quiet. For the first time in years, her calendar was blank, her inbox silent, her alarm clock off. At first it felt like a breakdown, then, like a reset. She stayed in her aunt's spare room in Brooklyn, wore fuzzy socks all day, ate cereal for dinner, cried once, okay, maybe 4 times, but not out of regret, out of release. She was no longer a title, a badge, a scandal. She was just Ava again. One morning, she opened a blank page, and typed 4 words, "Dear girls like me," and the words flowed. She wrote about ambition and mud puddles, about heartbreak and glass buildings, about how no one tells you that even strong women get tired of being strong. She posted the piece on her old blog, buried in a corner of the internet she hadn't touched since college. Within 24 hours, it had over 30,000 views. By the end of the week, it was reposted by major women's platforms, with the headline, "The former assistant who walked out with her head up and found her voice." Emails followed, offers, collaborations, speaking gigs, not because she went viral, but because she was real. And this time, Ava Collins wasn't walking into anyone's office to be saved. She was building her own room, with her own voice. Across the city, Ethan Blake watched from a distance. He hadn't reached out, not because he didn't want to, but because he understood now. Some loves aren't about holding on, they're about giving space to breathe. He read every post, every quote, every subtle line that sounded like her heart bleeding through keys, and he smiled, because she was becoming everything he knew she could be, without needing him to complete her. Then one night, in the middle of his now quiet penthouse, he received a package, no return address, just a small brown box. Inside, a single sunflower, a handwritten note, "Still stubborn, still shining, still cheering for you." He held it in his hands for a long time, a beat of sunlight in the middle of his shadowed skyline. He didn't know what would happen next, but he knew one thing for sure. This wasn't the end. Not for her, not for him, not for them. It started with an invitation. No sender name, just a black envelope with gold lettering that read, "One last show. You'll want to see this." Inside, a single ticket to the Foster and Trends Winter Gala, the biggest fashion night of the year. Ava blinked at it, confused. She hadn't been to a gala since before the world had known her name. But something about the paper, the choice of words, the whisper between the lines, she felt it in her chest. The night of the event, she wore a simple black dress, not designer, not flashy, just Ava, as she was now, stronger, softer, whole. The venue was dripping with elegance, crystal chandeliers, a white and gold runway, press everywhere. People turned when she walked in. Some remembered the scandal, others remembered the story. But Ava didn't flinch. She walked tall, shoulders back, heart calm. She wasn't here for anyone else. She was here for a reason. And then, the lights dimmed, the music began, and the final model walked the runway, wearing a stunning black suit, with sunflower embroidery on the collar. Behind him, the screen lit up, designed by Ava Collins. Gasps echoed, cameras flashed. Ava's heart stopped. What? Then the lights shifted, and there he was, Ethan Blake, on the runway, holding a mic. No spotlight, no teleprompter, no script, just a man, stripped of titles, unguarded, clear. "I stepped away from the company I built," he said, "and I'd do it again, if it meant standing here like this." People whispered, phones recorded, but he didn't look at them. He only looked at her. "There's someone here tonight, who walked into my life, covered in mud, caffeine, and chaos, and changed everything." Ava's throat tightened. "She taught me that leadership means vulnerability, that strength isn't silence, and that love isn't something you schedule between board meetings." Soft laughter rippled. Then Ethan pulled something from his pocket, a silver ring, small, simple, elegant. He stepped off the runway, walked straight toward her. People moved aside, like it was scripted by fate itself. And then he knelt. No big gestures, no dramatic speeches, just this: "I don't need headlines. I don't need perfection. I just need you, exactly as you are. Will you walk with me?" No titles, no walls, just us. Ava didn't cry. She smiled, bright, real, free. Then she stepped forward, took his hand, and whispered, "Only if you promise to still cook omelets." He laughed. So did the crowd. And right there in front of an audience full of power, fame, and flash, they kissed. Not for the press, not for the fairy tale, but because they had earned this ending. Epilogue. Ava never went back to being someone's assistant. Instead, she co-founded a creative firm with Ethan, equal partners. She wrote, she spoke, she designed. He listened, he lent, he let go of the coldness that once defined him. They traveled, argued, burnt toast, got lost in cities, and found each other again and again. Because when you build love, not on perfection, but on truth, you don't just write a story, you live one together.